Hello again, and welcome to Mastermind Minutes. My name is Gary Occhigrosso. I am the managing partner of Franchise Growth Solutions and also the publisher of FranchiseMoneymaker.com. If you want to find out about either of those two organizations, you can just click on one of the links below and it'll take you there. For those of you joining us for the very first time, Mastermind Minutes is a podcast and webcast really devoted to giving you information and insights in minutes, not hours. We have one guest, we ask one question, and we get one expert answer. And today our expert is Mike Freeman, who is the Chief Brand Officer at McALISTER'S Deli. And Mike has been working with McALISTER'S for 13 years and most recently served as Vice President of Operations. And we're going to talk about that because I love people who are involved in the brand and ops. I'm an ops guy myself. Mike started as an assistant general manager at the McAllister's Deli in Bossier, I hope I have that right, Bossier City, Louisiana. He has worked in various operations and training and leadership roles. He has 25 years of experience in the food service industry, and he's still with us. People who are in the restaurant business for 25 years and are still with us are real troopers. He is basically there to ensure dynamic brand development and consistent growth for McAllister's. He's known for advancing his team members and leveraging company restaurants to create strong community relationships. He studied at Penn State and is a graduate of CIA, Culinary Institute of America. That's up in my neck of the woods up here in the New York area. And Mike, hello, how are you? Before we get started with the question, tell us a little bit more about McAllister's and what you've been doing and maybe a little bit more about your background.
Hey, Gary, how are you? Thank you so much for having me today. We definitely appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, McAllister's Deli started out as a just southern brand that has now started this great massive growth spurt across the country to a national level. And really what we're known for is being a community-based brand that offers something for everyone, that's served with just a little bit something extra. So hospitality at the center of what we do, great food, fresh products, great service, and just being able to stay flexible and offering frictionless convenience to our guests has allowed us to be really, really successful even amidst the pandemic that we're currently operating in.
Yeah. And is there a signature product, something that's that McAllister's is really known for? People say that's the craveable item. I go to McAllister's to get that.
It's definitely our sweet tea. And if you look across the country, not many restaurant brands are known for having a signature product being their beverage, but our sweet tea is just absolutely craveable. We offer it in different flavors, sweet tea, unsweet tea. Just our fans just love it. They're ravenous for it. They come to us just over and over again, but literally our sweet tea is at the core of everything we do.
Okay, well, listen, that is a good point of differentiation. In addition to it being a unique product, it is in a unique category. You're right. Most food brands would talk about their whatever special sandwich or plate or what have you.
Our club sandwich is definitely the fan favorite when it comes to the food piece of the puzzle. French dip is just best in class. But all those things just pair great with our sweet tea, and it's an awesome product.
Great. Well, you're making me hungry right now. So let's get into the question. Now, the brand has had tremendous growth, especially in the last several years, and I want you to talk about that. But more importantly, a lot of folks who listen to this program are franchisors in the emerging category and startup category, which is the pond I play in. That's really what my company specializes in. And McAllister's is a fairly mature brand when you think about numbers of units and years in business. So I'm sure there was some key differentiators. There were probably some innovations that you guys had to make. What were they? Tell us a little bit about them and tell us about the growth.
Yeah, so unit level economics are very, very strong with our brand, Gary. And what we really wanted to do was just take that up another level and make not only our brand attractive to prospective franchisees, but to look through the consumer lens at all times. And when we did that, what we found was that our investment in digital needed to provide that frictionless experience I talked about earlier. No matter what marketing does, they're making promises to our guests that our operations team has to deliver against. And that's where that merger comes in. And then when we figured out exactly what those intersections were, we were trying to identify where does the guest come to our brand? And that intersection literally came out as where convenience meets value. And if we just started building upon that and building upon it, that led to loyalty investments, that led to our new app that was much more improved than what we were currently operating with. All those things allowed our guests to find different channels to enter into our brand the way they wanted to. And once we started doing that, the flywheel just started. We offered curbside service. Now we've launched tableside service where people can come in and skip the line. It's really about time and motion. And when we unlocked that, we started making significant investments into the digital space. And the guests really responded to that positively. We also built out a great prototype, and that was another flexible component of our success story. 2018, we launched our prototype in Atlanta, Georgia, and ever since then, it's been widely adopted by both our franchisees and our consumer sets. It just really springboarded us into different markets, and as we did that, it was very easily replicatable, so that we saw this giant growth model start to just develop on its own, and then we insulated ourselves around it in different strategically identified markets with our growth and development partners in franchise sales.
Okay, so there's a lot there. So let's
Yep.
start to unpack some of that. It sounds like it started with an increase in the tech stack.
Big time, yeah.
So what were you not doing, or rather, what did you add? It sounds like you added an app,
Yep.
and that really helped spur consumer. Were there additional points of entry digitally, third party ordering, that sort of thing?
Yeah, 3PD took off at the time we were making these investments in the app. It was a channel a lot of people just didn't understand completely. So we spent a lot of time figuring out the financial modeling around it to make it conducive for our franchise profitability. Once we did that, it became an opportunity to gain trial and actually acquire new guests. So going after the demand gen portion of the business, consumer acquisition, conversions, all those things became available to us once we got a much better opportunity through our app experience.
Yeah.
The one we were using prior just was a little too clunky. It wasn't a great UX. Once we streamlined that and created new order modes for people to actually use our brand in the way they wanted to, it became more personal and customizable. And as you know, in the center of this business is I want it my way. We all live in an I world. And how do we translate that to the guest experience inside of a restaurant? That's what we constantly look through the lens of every day.
Yep. Yep, man, that makes sense. So, question that came to my mind while you're speaking about this is: were these innovations pre-pandemic or as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, we leaned in hard sort of in 2018 and started identifying the right vendors to partner with, and people that offer the right capabilities that we wanted to go get. And we didn't want to settle. It was like, no one wants to mire in mediocrity. So how do we get to the top? How do we start getting best in class UX? You have to find best in class vendors. You have to have best in class operations and marketing. So once we identified the vendor, we started doing the work, stood up the wireframe, did all the testing, and then just, as unfortunate luck would have it, that's when the pandemic onset came in, right when we were going to launch. So our investments at that point were timely in that they were allowing us to stand up different order modes to stay flexible during the pandemic to offer our guests and consumers the McAllisters experience that they know and love.
Okay. I think the timing, the reason I asked the question is because I think the timing certainly underscores leadership at McAllister's kind of forward thinking, in the sense that, and not to be disrespectful or less than enthusiastic about some of the folks that I've spoken with over the last year and a half during the pandemic. A lot of the digital aspects of their companies came as a result of necessity during the pandemic. And silently, I think, if not for the pandemic, would these companies ever have employed any of this technology, which already existed? This is not something that, this technology did not come about as a result of the pandemic. It's just, it forced a lot of people into using it. And that's a good thing. But I think it's a better thing, as a former franchisee, by the way, and a franchisor, I think it's a better thing when the franchisor is delivering on the promise to its franchisees of what do I get from my royalties, is
Correct.
being forward thinking and saying, this is how we help you make money. And the fact that your company did that prior to, having the flames licking at the door, so to speak, I think says a lot for the brand. How long did that process take in order to, before you act from kind of inception to rollout?
Yeah, we already had an app stood up as we were continuing to optimize what we really wanted to get built. It was about 18 to 20 months. Obviously we're part of our Focus Brands company. Given the support and resources we get from them as a parent, allows us some of those benefits that we wouldn't be able to ultimately get to if it was just us being an independent brand. But we knew early on that we wanted to get to the contextual marketing aspects of the personalization components of the digital strategy. And just the way forward was the kiosk in everyone's hand, and that's our phone. And finding different ways to attract the right audience, to meet people where they wanted to be met. Speed became an opportunity for us. And what we tried to figure out was where were those friction points coming in at? Points of order, waiting in line, parking lot, all those things became a study for us. And the solution set became evident very early on that we just needed to streamline our application.
Yeah.
Once that was done, I mean, the guests and the loyalty program handled itself. Adoption rate went through the roof. And we're just seeing frequency and traffic increase every day. We are able to tell, as we stand today, a positive traffic story, which is great and not always prevalent in our space. So seeing that frequency and traffic maintain a positive number and track record is a big win for our brand, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I love that idea. And, digital, just a lot of the aspects of how restaurants are marketed, because I go way back when. I mentioned I'm a former franchisee of Dunkin' Donuts, but I'm going back to, when dinosaurs ruled the world back in the 1980s. So we didn't have any of this stuff. And marketing at that time, was very much about, we had little coupons on the bottom of a calendar and TV commercials, of course, and we could not in any way connect directly with our guests. We had to connect or try to connect with everyone. And hopefully our guests were in that media channel that we were using. So I love the fact that you can be relevant to the people who already love you, and then it kind of broaden.
Attract a new audience.
I
mean, we were in the middle of that digital disruption, right? Like in 2018, it was like there was a digital disruption that was taking place across the industry. And there was a point of inflection where you had to make a decision. Am I going to be a fast follower, or am I going to be a leader? And we decided that since we already had an app up and running, that we could go after the latter and start getting best in class tools that would attract a niche audience. And lo and behold, we got our hands on it. We started building it out. And timing took over from there. So we were very happy.
I agree with you. I think it's very, very important to be first in or near first in, because otherwise you're just, you're a copycat, or you're an also ran, and people are already diverted. They get into that habit. They get, they just do what they do. But the tracking, your ability to track guest expenditures, your ability to track the guest usage, to touch the guest, to know what they've ordered, to be able to perhaps bundle bonuses or specials or rewards and use all of those other components, to me is key. Because as we know, we've always heard and said, it's less costly to keep a guest and keep a guest coming back than to go out and find new guests. And I think the digital piece does that. Let's kind of shift gears from the consumer side to the franchise side. And maybe you can shed some light on this. I don't know what level of involvement you have on the franchise side, but how has the digital aspect and the innovations that have been brought to the brand impacted the growth on the franchise side?
Yeah, it's been huge. I mean, literally everything we do is centered around it now. It's the topic of every single conversation we have with our franchise advisory council and our system. It's amazing to understand the lifetime value of our guests and how that's changed since the application took over the space. Our franchisees are highly focused on traffic, highly focused on profitability. And when you can sort of attach some of the bogeys to the lifetime value of acquired guests through our enterprise application, it's just amazing. Our brand already had a large contingent of super users, if you will. We talked about our sweet tea earlier. It is a caffeinated drink. People do like to come to us, way more than most brands would see a typical super user do. But once you attach loyalty to that, you really start answering the question, what's in it for me? You can start identifying and predicting value in a different way. And it doesn't always come from the retail menu, which franchisees like to see. We've protected our value proposition by suppressing price everywhere we can and offering value in different ways, i.e. an app that answers that question to our guests, and sort of makes it feel like they're getting something they weren't expecting, which is that little something extra through some surprise and delight elements, is a big win. And our franchisees love that innovation. They love finding something that's different. Like you said, it's a better price point. You know, the point of entry is much lower and digestible. But once you start getting good at it, like you start really understanding what you can get from the guest, the information. Now I'm not wasting your time. And when I have a brand that's not wasting my time, I tend to like that brand a lot more. I don't need the needless emails that try to sell me something that I never am going to order. I've never been to your restaurant for. Now I'm just getting smarter. The intelligence of the tool starts to take over. And now the guest feels more engaged and more, I guess, like they're in love with our brand as opposed to liking our brand at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Guest engagement, franchisee engagement rises tremendously. So just real quickly, how many operating units do you have right now, if you know, and how many are in development and you plan to open in 2022?
Yeah, we just opened up our 500th recently, so we'll end the year just about 510. We have a little over 290 in the pipeline. So like you said, I've been with the brand a long time. I've seen it double in size. It will not take that same time to double in size again. So really good news for our investors, really good news for our franchisees. We're doing great in new markets, which is just outstanding to understand, you know, what penetration looks like for our brand, identification, awareness, all those things again get amplified through that digital experience. But the pipeline forward is robust, and that's probably the best word I can use. It's really a game of how fast can we get them open. Right now, it looks like we have a pipeline that'll open up 1 store a week for the next 5 years, which is outstanding. You start thinking about that and what that does for our system, our awareness, and our overall future growth with new franchisees entering our system. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it sounds, and your new franchisees, because I would also anticipate a lot of the forward units that are opening are existing franchisees looking to capitalize and open additional units, which is always a great sign.
Yeah.
And that's always a great, but I'm also anticipating that you have new franchisees coming in. Where are they coming from? Are these folks who are brand loyalists? Are they operators of other brands? Are they doing internet searches? Where are these folks coming from?
Mostly operators of other brands, Gary. Like they're looking to diversify, looking to either exit, step up, or step into something new. Obviously, our unit level ec is super attractive to many people in the industry, and we're getting more mature franchisees that have a more sophisticated infrastructure is probably the best way to put it, to be able to grow and develop quickly. And as they enter into the system, you know, our task is to make sure they onboard great and have an awesome experience out of the gate. So identifying ourselves as a franchisor of choice makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely something that we hold near and dear, and making sure that everyone that comes into our system is successful immediately, which again encourages rapid growth.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in the franchising industry, and as I mentioned earlier, I've been in the industry now about 35 years. The progression always was kind of the single unit operator, and he or she operated their business. And then, you want to call it 20 years ago, brands started to really focus on, multi-unit operators, where operators were within the same brand, but just leveraging what they had already known in the brand. And then, the trend there went from, well, I own 15 of this brand and I can't build any more in my territory. So, hey, I know how to deploy capital. I know how to develop people. I know how to find real estate, and I'm passing on good real estate because I already have something there. Let me find another brand. So we went, kind of industry went from single unit owner operators to multi-unit operators to multi-brand operators in the portfolio as operators. And then on the private equity side, as Focus is a great example, went from, private equity 25 years ago, I'm not so sure they were that interested in franchising and in restaurants, and now they own portfolio of brands. So that does bring a certain level of, use your word, sophistication of the operator. And that, by the way, doesn't cut out the single unit operator and the person who wants to get involved. And really, why does franchising exist? to a great extent is to give people kind of the framework and the support to get into business perhaps for the first time. So it doesn't cut that out. And again, I'm always focused on that, but it also allows brands to grow and develop at a quicker, more efficient and more profitable rate by bringing in folks who have I've done this before. I need to learn your brand. So
the big catalyst, like the catalyst, Gary, has been real estate. It's just been, it's opened up so much since, the pandemic, and having a flexible brand like McAllister's that can flex into, a strip center, a shopping mall, an end cap, a freestanding location, a conversion from another brand creates a lot of opportunity. And when a market real estate presents itself, a lot of these, developers and operators, they're looking for something bigger and something different. And that's where our brand sits. Like, we can get into any space that exists and deliver really positive results.
Yeah. We have a few brands in our portfolio that have that sort of flexible footprint, which is wonderful, because with the, I realize the closing of restaurants during the pandemic is tragic for a lot of folks, but the upside is that there's a lot of great second generation restaurant space in great locations that, when you consider the fact that the mechanicals, so to speak, are already there, things like hoods and HVAC and bathrooms in the right place, from a franchisee's point of view, you can turn the key and open those units for 20-30% less than it was pre-pandemic. So there's some good aspects there. What kind of last word, what would you like to leave us with today?
Yeah, McAllister's is just poised for such growth that we couldn't be more excited about it, Gary. We're going into new markets. We're a brand that was incepted in Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi specifically, that was a southern regional brand for a very, very long time. We've expanded west, we've expanded north. We're going into the Northeast corridor next. It's got a flexible model that offers something for everybody, but community based. We do a lot of work in our community. We don't just say it, we actually do it. We invite everyone that opens up, or we open up in their city, to come to our restaurant, understand what our brand's about, tell us how we can help, tell us how we can be a part of what you're doing. And the rest just takes care of itself. It's so much easier to be nice, open, warm, and gentle. And when you're genuine, it just adds the cherry on top. So we couldn't be happier to go into these new markets. We're excited about what the future holds for McAllister's. Our digital experience is going to be at the forefront of everything we do. We're excited to hear the feedback from our guests, but right now is the time to grow, and we're dropping the gas.
Well, that's great. And I can hear, my three components, what I tell my franchisor clients. I can hear the honesty, the passion, and the authenticity in what you're saying. And I think that's key, either as a consumer, because you want to know you're dealing with an authentic brand and one that, carries out its mission in an authentic way. But as a franchisee, you want to know that the company has, beyond the nuts and bolts, that there are there's the respect, there's the appreciation, the integrity, and really the passion to help the franchisee make money. Because at the end of the day, that's how franchisors are successful.
Everything we do has franchisee support attached to it and consumer lens on the backside. So
yep,
totally agree.
That's you're preaching to the choir, brother. How do people, if they want to know more about McAllister's, what do they do? How do they reach you, or how do they reach the brand? What's the best?
Yeah, they can check us out on our website at McAllistersDeli.com. There's all sorts of franchising information, and we'll definitely reach out once we're contacted. If there's an opportunity that presents itself in your community, we'd love to hear from you and understand what you're looking to do. We'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Great.
And we, as our audience knows, we always post the website and how people can get in touch in the bio of the webcast and in the podcast. Well, Mike, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Very insightful stuff. Love to hear about brands that are growing in unique and different ways. I especially like the idea that McAllister's was forward thinking in terms of its digital footprint, and wasn't just simply reacting to pandemic, but was ahead of that. So again, I want to thank you for your time today.
All right, appreciate it, Gary. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
My pleasure.